This meeting is being recorded.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our first training session on reusable nappies designed for childminders and nurseries. My name's Helena and I am one of two waste away coordinators for the Hertfordshire Waste Partnership. I used reusables on both of my children, so I'm quite passionate about encouraging the sharing of them, but obviously from a waste point of view, it's an incredibly valuable activity to take part in. We are joined today by two of my colleagues, Jo Boyd and Ellen Roberts, who are from our district councils. The Hertfordshire Waste Partnership works with all of the district and boroughs in Hertfordshire. There are 10 of them, and then obviously the county council as well. We are also joined this morning by Sarah Perthin from the Nappy Lady. The Nappy Lady has been around for over 20 years, so they have lots of experience. They are independent of any brands, so offer a huge amount of quality advice to help find the right nappy for each family. And although they mainly work with individual families, they've also been doing a fair amount of work with nurseries recently. And there are some out there who actually have their own nursery nappies that then used for families rather than the families bringing them in. So Sarah, if I hand over to you, you may get started. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So as Helena sort of explained the purpose of today, I'll just take you through almost a complete beginner's guide on cloth nappies, the different parts of a nappy, different types of nappies, generally sort of using them, and the types of nappies that you may be more likely to come across in your settings, and sort of just the ways of helping you be able to use that, and just sort of supporting the knowledge with the knowledge that you can maybe pass on to other families who might be interested. I think we notice a little bit of a snowball effect if other people notice. So, you know, what are those nice colourful nappies up on the shelf, or any other baby touring cloth nappies, and might sort of encourage them to give it a go. So it's just about sort of supporting you with the knowledge to be able to pass on to your families. So I always like to start off with explaining the different parts of what makes up a nappy, because there are lots of different types of cloth nappies out there. They're all essentially made up of the same basic parts. They just work together in a different way. So I find it much easier to understand the different types once you know what each bit of it does. So basically, starting from the outside then and working your way in, you've got the waterproof layer on the outside. That just stops the wetness from getting through onto baby's clothes. Inside that then you've got your absorbency, the nappy part, so that's the main important part of the system that soaks up all the wee, catches the poo. Inside that then optionally you have a booster. Now a booster is just a pad of absorbent fabric, and that's just used to add extra absorbency to the nappy. So if the nappy itself isn't quite holding enough for the child, then you would add a booster to just sort of add extra capacity to that nappy. Whether a child will need to use a booster or not is sort of difficult to predict, because obviously some wee heavier than others, so it's difficult sort of to predict the combination of that particular baby and that particular nappy. Lots of babies might not need to use a booster at all during the day, but most would be using them at night, just to more capacity for that additional wear time. Then the last layer we've got the nearest baby skin is the liner. Now a liner doesn't have any absorbency in it, it's just there to catch any solids, make it easier to clean up after a dirty nappy, so that it allows the wee to soak straight through the liner where it's absorbed by the nappy underneath, and then you can just sort of remove the solids more easily. It also acts as a nice sort of stay dry barrier against baby skin as well, so they're not in contact with that wet nappy. There are two different types of liners that you might come across. You've got your reusable fleece liners or a disposable paper liner. So with the fleece liner, it's like a thin microfleece, like you might have a fleece jacket or something. This is always a preferred option for younger babies. especially pre-weaned, because obviously the poo is a lot lot stickier than it is for older babies. So the fleece tends to stay in place a lot better. With the paper liners, then might be the more convenient option for a childcare setting, because if it is a dirty nappy, you can just lift off that paper liner, contents and all, and throw it in the bin with the disposable nappies. With the fleece, sort of, it is some families' preferred option because it's washed and reused, but that would need to see the waste to be removed from the liner first. So within the settings, it might be an agreement that you come to with the families about. Do you remove the contents first, or do you just send it all home for the parents to deal with at home? So there's your two different options that you might come across there. So they were the basic parts then: the waterproofing, the absorbency, optionally a booster, and then a liner nearest baby skin. So all the different types of nappies then are those same basic parts, just put together in a different way. So the first type I'm going to show you then is your two-part system. So you have a fitted nappy and then a separate waterproof wrap that goes on top. Now this is the most reliable system that we can come across, simply because you've got two layers of containment around the legs there. So if anything does escape from the nappy itself, you've got the added protection from the wrap to catch the worst of it so it doesn't get out onto baby's clothes. The nappy itself as well is more absorbent, simply because there's physically more absorbent fabric there. So if any children have this two-part system, you can change just the nappy and you can reuse that same waterproof wrap for up to 4 nappy changes, unless it has got soiled between changes, but otherwise you can reuse it. Just give it a quick wipe down with a muslin or with a tissue and you can reuse that again. This tends to be a system that lots of people will choose to stick with just for night time, because it is a little bit bulkier. Lots of families will think, well, actually that doesn't really fit nicely over baby's clothes, it's a little bit too bulky for daytime use. But others think, well, actually I don't really mind the additional bulk because I'm happy with the extra containment and reliability that it offers. The next type I want to show you, this might be one that you are more likely to come across within your settings, is the all-in-one nappy. So as the name suggests, it's all one part, all sewn together. So you've got your waterproof fabric on the outside, and then the absorbent part is fully sewn in on the inside of the nappy. So this is probably the closest to disposable nappy that you're going to get to change. So you take off the whole nappy and put a whole clean nappy back on again. With an all-in-one nappy, it tends to be where you'll notice most difference between brands. So if you've got a few children at the nursery, each with their own nappies, you might find that some of them are nice and straightforward like this, where the pad is just sewn in at the front and the back. Others might have extra little bits popped in here and there, but they're all essentially sort of the whole nappy comes off, whole clean nappy comes back on. So you would, in the all-in-one nappy, you'd have your liner on the inside there as well to help catch the poo. And another option that is sort of fairly likely to come across within the nursery is the pocket nappy. So just like an all-in-one, it's just the one piece to take off, all clean nappy back on again. You've got your waterproof layer on the outside, and it's fully lined on the inside as well with a fleece or a stay dry fabric, and they form a pocket at the back of the nappy. And inside the pocket then you would have your absorbency So 1 or 2 absorbent inserts, depending on the brand, and they are stuffed inside the pockets just to form one part. The pocket nappy, I think, gives a little bit more flexibility than an all-in-one, because a family can customise the absorbency a little bit more to what they need. So you can use one insert if baby isn't wetting particularly heavily, so maybe for a younger baby, and then as they get older and they're weeing that a little bit more, then you use two inserts together there. With a pocket nappy, there isn't necessarily a need to use a separate liner on top there, because it's already built into the nappy, but just for ease and convenience of cleaning up the dirty nappy, you could pop a paper liner inside there as well. Sort of slightly more left field type of nappy next. This is your all-in-two nappy. So this falls sort of part way between your two-part system of your fitted nappy in a separate wrap and an all-in-one. So you've got the same, I'll get to your question now, Zoe, in a second. So you've got the same parts. You've got your separate waterproof cover, and the absorbent insert on this one, it poppers inside the cover. So just like your two-part system, you can reuse that same cover for up to 4 nappy changes. So what you do is sort of take out the wet insert and pop a clean one back in. So it might be if you have families that are using all-in-two nappies, they might have gone and bought a few extra covers, and they would send the nappy already prepared. So you would then just change it as an all-in-one. Whole nappy comes off, whole clean nappy goes back on. Otherwise, it's just a case of take out that wet pad and pop a clean one back in. So, Zoe, you were asking about the liners. We stock them here at the Nappy Lady. There are sort of some supermarkets as well. I think Tesco's, I think I'll sell them. Boots have got their own brand as well. Yeah, I would, particularly for younger babies, I would stick with a nice thick brand, so something like the Bambinex paper liners. That's that little bit thicker. They stay in place a lot better, especially for that that tricky weaning stage where it's not quite solid yet. And the last type of nappy I wanted to show you, I'm not sure if you're likely to come across this at Childcare too much, although I was reading in our Facebook group just yesterday that somebody had finished their first week at Childcare, and they had sent your good old-fashioned terry square, and their nursery loved them and got on really well with them. So this is sort of what lots of people will expect when we talk about cloth nappies, is the good old-fashioned terry square. They're becoming a lot more popular again recently because it's a really economically priced way of doing cloth nappies. If people are sort of wanting to use cloth nappies for cost saving purposes, but it is a more expensive investment up front than with your terry squares. You can pick them up for £1 or £2, so you get to have your full set of sort of full-time cloth nappies for less than £100. So this is a really good cost-effective way of doing things. It's not quite as easy and convenient as other types, because it does involve folding the nappy to shape first, but that does give people a lot more options, because you can play about and adapt the different folds to what each baby needs. You know, some folds are better for girls, better for boys. Some are more absorbent than others, and you can make them different shapes and sizes. If you have got families that are using terry squares, it might be that they send them already folded up for you, so you just need to fasten it on baby. But this is a nice basic fold to use. This is the jaw fold. Just folding each corner into the centre, so we've made it look like an envelope. And then you're going to fold each end into thirds, again like you're folding a piece of paper to go into an envelope. So we've got a nice narrow pad there. And then at the back, you're folding out one corner and the other, so you've made your nappy shape there. So this might be the stage that a family might send it in to you. And then we can pop a paper liner in there to attach it on to baby. Then you bring that narrow part up between baby's legs, where we've made the wings at the back, and round one side, around another side. So we fold it into the nappy shape like that. To fasten the nappy, then we would use one of these nappy nippers. So that's your sort of the modern version of your nappy pin. And your nappy nipper works under tension. So we touch it on one side, stretch it across to the other side, and down in the centre in the Y shape. So that's all held on nice and securely. And then with your terry square, then you would use a waterproof wrap over the top. So this, terry squares might be an option to consider for any settings that might be looking at introducing cloth, sort of providing them to parents, because you can really adapt the folds and make it fit all sorts of shapes and sizes of babies. If you've got a whole age range from sort of 6 months up to 2.5, you can normally make a terry square fit most babies. They're quite durable and hard wearing to wash as well. So if you are sort of using the same set of nappies on more than one baby, you can very easily wash terry squares on a hot temperature, just to keep that all nice and hygienic. So those are the sort of the main types of nappies that you might come across. It tends to be families will favour the all-in-one or the pocket nappy for sending to childcare, just because it's makes life nice and easy for everybody, and from your point of view, it's probably about the closest you're going to get to disposable nappies in terms of changing them. We're sort of fitting and changing. A cloth nappy does fit a little bit differently to a disposable. They tend to fit a lot lower on baby's hips, so they don't come all the way up to the belly button as a disposable nappy might do. So you might expect to have maybe a 2 or 3 finger gap, sort of 2 fingers between the top of the nappy and baby's belly button. So it's likely that you've come across this, it's called a one size nappy. So this adjusts as in size as baby grows. So we've got this grid of poppers down the front of the nappy, so we can adjust the size. So we take, say for a smaller baby, that lower row of poppers on the grid and attach it up to the top row. And what we're doing there is just getting rid of all that excess length of fabric inside. So that's going to adjust and fit all the way as baby grows. And then you've got lots and lots of rows of poppers at the front as well to fasten it around baby's waist as needed. Excuse me. So tightness wise, what we're aiming for, that you can just run a finger easily around the elastic. So not too loose that it's leaving any gaps where anything can escape, and so we don't need it to be so tight that you're sort of damming everything in almost, because the absorbency is going to happen from the fabric inside. So just that you're running a finger loosely around the elastic, and the same around the back and the waist as well. With the all-in-one and pocket nappies in particular, some might have some elastic at the front, which makes it nice and a little bit more forgiving to fit. And some don't have elastic at the front. If you've got any that don't have, especially when you're changing baby lying down, it's quite common to have a little gap at the waist, sort of between baby's tummy and the nappy. Normally then, once baby's sitting up again, standing, that gap will be sort of taken up by a little tummy. So it isn't uncommon to just be able to lightly fit your fingers around the front there. In terms of sort of changing frequency, then obviously within your settings, you've got more of a schedule to stick to when you've got lots of babies that need changing. But generally with a cloth nappy, I might expect it to last between 2 and 3 hours for an all-in-one or a pocket nappy. Again, it's sort of dependent on the combination of the type of nappy, the fabric of the nappy, how heavily baby weighs, but generally we'll be looking at sort of 2 to 3 hour change, and then, as you're all familiar with doing, as soon as possible after a poo. Sometimes I find it can be a little bit trickier to work out if baby has had a dirty nappy in a cloth nappy, because it doesn't have the chemical crystals inside that tends to react a little bit quicker and cause that lovely smell that we're all so familiar with. But yeah, that's what we're aiming for. If you're noticing that baby is maybe leaking through quite quickly, sort of before you get to that 2 to 3 hour stage, I'd sort of double check the fit in the first instance, that there are no gaps around the legs, sort of no parts of the liner are maybe sticking out of the legs. And that if you're finding sort of that happens quite frequently, you might want to work with the family to say, actually, could we try that you send in the nappy with an extra booster added inside, just to give that little bit more capacity, and makes things a little bit easier for you as well if you're sort of following your changing schedules. Another sort of common issue that we might find with causing leaks and things would be if baby's clothes are a little bit too tight around the nappy. So if you've got a younger baby still in poppered vests, and they're just getting that sort of towards the top end of the size range for that vest, if it's squeezing on the nappy a little bit too much, that is going to sort of compress all that liquid back out through the legs again. So it might be that sort of families might be a bit more aware of that, so are sending baby in joggers rather than leggings, for example, or it might be that you just have to unpopper the vest and keep it nice and open, so we haven't got so much compression. What is sometimes used by lots of people are these vest extenders. So it's just a little rectangle of fabric, and that poppers onto the poppers underneath baby's vest. So that just gives it a little bit more space around the nappy, so that it's not compressing quite as much. So with sort of changing wet nappies, dirty nappies, it's likely that families might send you in a wet bag, a waterproof wet bag, to store the used nappies. If the nappy's just wet, it can come straight off baby, straight into the wet bag, and with a paper liner you could either, as works for you on your family's best, you could either throw that paper liner away with the disposable nappies, or send it home for parents to deal with at home. If it's a dirty nappy, again, it's sort of coming to that agreement what works for everybody. the easiest thing would be if parents are using the paper liners and they've sent those in, that you just pick that up, throw it away with the disposables, and just send the rest of the nappies back in the wet bag. What's quite common, becoming more popular this year, are these pod wet bags. So this might be something that you see to send nappies in at the start of the week. So it's sort of a cuboid shape that the nappies fit in quite neatly. Sort of they can fit 5 or 6 nappies in there, which is probably enough for a day's worth, a full day at nursery. So when my little ones were at nursery, I think in general they were aiming to change them 4 times during the day, so I'd send in 5 nappies just in case, so they've got to spare. And wet bags might be something a bit more useful for any nurseries who might be looking at doing things a little bit more sustainably, as well as especially if you've got dirty clothes, wet clothes that you're having to send home at the end of the day. So rather than putting them in a plastic nappy bag, you could get a set of wet bags to then send not just sort of wet nappies, but any wet clothes or paint covered, custards covered clothes by the end of the day, that families could have that. We have helped some nurseries who want to do that. So once or twice a year they come and buy their supply of wet bags, different prints for each child or different print for each room. And sort of it just comes back and forth between home and nursery, and just cuts down on the amount of sort of plastic bags and things going into the bin at the end of the day. What we can provide as well, if it would be of any use, we've got a whole selection of step-by-step sort of fitting guides for using cloth nappies, sort of how to fit them nicely, which part goes where, how tight to fit them. So I can certainly make those available to Helena, who can pass them on to you afterwards. The next thing I would like to talk about is very quickly is different fabrics of nappies. We could spend the whole session just talking about fabrics and getting into the really nitty gritty of what they all do. But just sort of, it's more knowledge for yourselves, might be sort of troubleshooting with any issues that you might come across. In general, the most absorbent fabrics for nappies would be your natural fabrics, so cotton, bamboo. They're nice and breathable as well, so they're quite good if families are prone to nappy rash, or they just want sort of something a little bit more natural against baby skin. Because then they are the more absorbent ones, it does mean that they take longer to dry. So if you have any families who are more limited on their drying space at home, they might choose a microfiber or polyester based nappy. So that's a man-made fabric, which is excellent for drying speeds, but it is lower in absorbency. So maybe an older toddler with a microfiber nappy would expect to maybe see a booster in that nappy as well, so that they can still benefit from the additional absorbency of the natural fabric, but it's a little bit quicker to dry because you can separate that out from the nappy itself. With nappy cream, I was going to talk about as well, if that's, so I know some childcare settings will use nappy cream as standard, others only as necessary. Most creams are fine to use with cloth nappies. Some of the ones that are more sort of oil or petroleum based can sort of tend to stain the nappies, or leave a bit of a build up on the fabric, which is going to affect the absorbency. So if you are using any creams in the nappy, I'd always recommend using a paper liner inside, just to avoid sort of any staining or build up. And then some of the more natural creams, things like Weleda is a nice one, a Child's Farm, that kind of thing, tend to be free of the more stainy, oily ingredients, so they can sort of go directly on the fabric of the nappy, and that shouldn't cause any more problems. I'll talk sort of briefly about washing the nappies. Obviously, that's something that you're unlikely to be doing too much of, but it's just so that you can help your families if they have got any questions. In general, it's recommended to wash your cloth nappies every other day. If we leave them much longer than that, 2 days, it just has time for that wee and poo to soak in a little bit more deeply into the nappy, so it makes it more difficult to get a nice thorough clean. So we sort of every 2 days is a good one to aim for. So the first thing we want to do is run a rinse cycle. So just water, no detergent at this point, and the purpose of the rinse is just to flush out the worst of what's in the nappies. And then for the main part of the wash, then we want to be using a cycle that uses lots of water and is for a nice long length of time. So normally a cotton's cycle that built into most machines is perfect. While baby's younger, up to about 4 months of age, we recommend to wash at 60, just while baby's still building up a little bit more resistance to germs of themselves. After that age, washing at 40 is fine. It's more economical to run the machine that way. And with detergent, then it's always preferable to use a powder detergent rather than a liquid. Liquid and fabric softener, they can just start to build up on the fabrics over time and repeated washing, so that is going to affect the absorbency of the nappies, because it just leaves a little bit of a film, a barrier for how quickly that we can soak in. So with powder detergent, it's all dissolved away, washed away at the end of the cycle. And we just want to make sure that that families are using enough detergent as well. So whatever the dosage guide on the box is for heavy soiling in your water types, so if you're hard water, soft water, and some will recommend using an additional quantity if it's a particularly big washing machine, sort of over 7 kilos or so. And that sort of total on the box will be for if the machine is full all the way up to the top. Normally your 2 days worth of nappies might be about 3/4 up to the top, so then you would use 3/4 of whatever that number looks like on the box, so it's proportional basically to how full you're filling the machine. So I think that was probably most of the sort of whistle-stop tour of everything that you might need to know. Were there any questions in particular?
That was an excellent run through. I learned quite a lot from that one. If you have any questions, do feel free either to take yourself off mute or just type it in the chat. Are there any information that was shared there that has already been useful? How are you feeling about it?
The only question I've got is I used to use the proper popper, the 2-part, and it was a family of 3 daughters. And I had the oldest in them, and they were all lovely and new. Middle, and then the poor little one at the end got the dress. Unfortunately, the only thing that she used to bring it in like a drawstring kind of bag, and it's where to store it, because unfortunately with poop it smells, and my whole house used to reek, but it wasn't of fresh poo, which is kind of acceptable-ish. It was horrible, and in the summer I used to have to tie the bag to the window of my downstairs toilet and hang it out the window with it stuck a bit, because there was flies coming in. It was horrible, and you know, it wasn't very nice for everybody.
Well, you might want to maybe look at something like a nappy bucket then to store them in. So it's there isn't anything particularly special about this that makes it a nappy bucket. It's just a nicer, generous size, and it's got a good fitting lid as well, which is the important thing that you're looking for. So if it's a dirty nappy, you take it off. You maybe want to try and remove most of the poo first. So if it's sort of on a disposable liner, you could put that in the nappy bin, or flush the worst of it down the toilet. Obviously, it's maybe more difficult when you've got lots of little ones that you need to be looking after as well. But yeah, your bucket with a good tight fitting lid on top should keep most of the smells contained in there as well. What I might want to look into in situations like that as well, if you are noticing that there's a smell, is to maybe sort of encourage to relook at what they're doing with the washing as well, because it could be that if the nappies are not being sort of fully washed through thoroughly every time, then there's a little bit of ammonia that has built up in the fabric. If there's a poo in that, then it's going to smell a little bit not quite as fresh, shall we say.
Thank you.
Yes, so Jane, you were asking about storing bags of nappies, and if you've got multiple children to be looking after as well. I think it all depends on the space that you've got in the nursery as well. Certainly when my little ones were at nursery, there was sort of a couple of shelves up in the nappy changing room where sort of we all had to provide our own nappies, either disposable or reusable. So the clean ones would just go in the child's place on the shelf. My wet bag that I sent in, I think they had sort of a couple of extra hooks up on the wall in the nappy change room. So you put each child's wet bag sort of hanging up on the wall, and in there it's probably best to try and keep them in the bathroom or in the nappy changing area, just for smells purposes and things really. With your wet bags, there shouldn't be too much of a smell involved because there is a zip that's going to keep everything contained. But obviously, as you're opening and closing and opening and closing, it's going to build up. Or it can hang on the child's peg or in their nursery rucksack, whatever they send their spare clothes and things in as well. So it's kind of working with the space that you've got there as well. And oh yeah, the disposable nappy liners as well, you were asking about. With the paper liners, they can be composted. So if the nursery or the families at home have got home compost facilities, or if the local authority offers a garden waste collection or something, they can go in there if it's just wet. If it's dirty, so you would want to remove the soiling first, and then it can be reused. So yeah, they will eventually degrade because it is paper based. But obviously, if it's going into the main landfill waste, the conditions that that's kept in will mean that they won't degrade eventually. So it's sort of it's about balancing where the priorities are. The fleece liners will be the more sustainable option long term, but maybe for your setting, it's not as practical because you would have to be rinsing the poo off the liner every time there's a dirty nappy. So if you've got 4 or 5 dirty nappies to do every 3 hours, then you're going to be spending a lot of time rinsing out poo. So it might be that actually using the cloth nappies in the first place is going a long way towards helping the environment. So maybe we can compromise on the paper liners inside if it makes it easier for everybody to actually use the cloth nappies where they might not otherwise be able to. If they're flushable, some brands are marketed as flushable. It's not recommended to be regularly flushing certainly large quantities of them, because depending on the plumbing it's can cause blockages and things sort of coming back up. So yeah, just but sort of in the bin where possible. But you know, now and again, if it's a particularly awful nappy, then you know the odd one or two can be flushed, but I wouldn't regularly flush quantities of them. But yes, otherwise, if you've got, you know, the majority of your family's using disposable nappies, probably the easiest way for yourselves would be to put your paper liners in the bin with the disposable nappies and have it collected there. Zoe was asking about the price for wet bags. It sort of depends on the brand and things that you go for, but the nursery that we've worked with recently went for Baba and Boo wet bags, which are quite a reasonable price. We're looking at sort of around £6-7 for a medium-sized bag, which is similar to this. So that might quite easily fit 6 cloth nappies, or you know, 2 or 3 full outfits in there. If it was something that you're sort of considering, we can look at sort of discounts if you're wanting to buy larger quantities, those and things as well. So feel free to get in touch that way. Let me just check that I haven't missed any more questions. I think hopefully I've covered all of those. If there was nothing else that sprung to mind.
So talking about the discount there, it might be a useful time for me to come in and share that across Hertfordshire, the Waste Partnership has teamed up with several suppliers, of which the Nappy Lady is one, to offer 15% discount for purchases of nappies and accessories. And obviously childcare providers are included within that. So if you would like to take advantage, you can have a look at our webpage. I'll share the link in a second. And you just fill in a little application form, and then you have access to the discount codes, and they can be used. Some of them are just a single use, others can be used over a set time, but you're able to use a different code for every supplier if you would like to. So have a little look around and see what works best for you, and that does include the wet bags. We also can provide a template letter, which you may wish to send out to your families to let them know that this is something that you would like to offer, that you can provide support with their reusable nappies. There are a number of nappy libraries across the county, which is like a book lending library, but instead of books, it's nappies. So they have them available to hire, so families can try them at low cost to see which ones work best for them. And it's a whole sort of kit, sort of the nappy bucket, often 20 nappies, so the families can then have them for a month, 3 months at a time, to really get to grips with using those nappies and working out which of the different types and brands might be most suitable for them. And there is a map online of where the nearest nappy libraries are, which again I will share. As part of the council, we also have some flyers available, some leaflets, posters that can be put on a changing table. So there's lots of resources. We've just come out of Nappy November, which is something that we set up. So twice a year we offer a promotion on reusable nappies. So there's lots of lovely images. If this is something that you might like to offer, we're very happy to share. And then finally, all of the districts and boroughs across the county have a nappy kit, so a demonstration kit which is available. So if you are having an open day or something like that, you'd be very welcome to borrow that. So it's sort of as a bag of nappies, all of the different types. You've got some liners and boosters, some of those nappy nippers, which is like the T-shaped plastic piece, and the vest extenders, plus a pull-up banner. So if you wanted to have sort of a display, then that is absolutely fine. Just ask us. I hope that has been helpful. I certainly found it fascinating. Obviously, we've got the recording available, so you'll be able to come back and review and refresh as needed. I've just seen a little question there. Does anyone come to events to speak to parents? Yes, we can absolutely offer that. Either within the council, we're becoming more expert on this as we're doing more, or the nappy libraries themselves might be available. So yeah, if you do have any events, then do let us know. And if we're available, then we can come and support you. Any other questions, any comments that anyone would like to offer? Give a minute in case anyone's tapping away there. Sarah, thank you so much. This has been incredibly useful. And thank you everybody for joining us. It's wonderful to have you, your interest in this topic, and I hope to stay in touch. If you do try them, or if you're going to try them with a few more families, please do let us know how it goes. If you'd like to tag us on social media, then it's at Hearts Waste Aware and it's at the Nappy Library. Sorry, no, it's not. It's the Nappy Lady. Talking about libraries in my head.
Yeah.
Yes, I will absolutely pop the links in the chat box. Just bear with me while I find them. I had them already and now I've lost my tab.
What I can do as well in the chat box, I will just pop down a link, and that has got our fitting guides for each different type of nappy. So there's sort of an all-in-one, an all-in-two, a fitted nappy, just sort of step-by-step photo guides of how to fit them.
So the first link I've posted is obviously to the scheme. Thank you, you got there first, Sarah. And then this one is the UK Nappy Network, and they've got a map so you can find your nearest library. So you just pop in your postcode, or you can search on the map and those will come up. Some of them offer postal service, so even if they're not directly sort of near you, but others, they often host a one-to-one or sort of a physical face-to-face session once a month, maybe once a week, in different settings. So it can be a nice social opportunity for families as well, and I'm sure that they would welcome any engagement that you'd like to give with them. Thank you all. I will stop the recording now, and good luck.